Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Friday, July 23rd. This is Africa 54.
Thousands gather in the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa in support of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Students in Malawi begin classes in the world's first 3D printed school. And could this athlete bring home Burkina Faso's first Olympic medal?
Condemning Tigrayan forces and praising the failing of a major dam project, thousands of people rallied in Ethiopia's capital Addis Ababa on Thursday in support of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. David Doyle reports.
Thousands filled the streets of Addis Ababa on Thursday, showing their opposition to Ethiopia's opponents both inside and outside its borders. Some carried signs condemning the Tigray People's Liberation Front, whose forces the federal military has been fighting in the country's north, as a cancer. Others commended Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for filling the $4 billion Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. That move has angered Egypt and Sudan, who fear the dam's impact on their access to Nile waters. Speaking at the rally, Addis Mayor Adenech Abebe told the crowd, "This is our time."
Enemies from within and historical enemies from outside are scared of our reforms and are working together and tirelessly to disturb our sovereignty, to disrupt our national unity and our journey to prosperity.
Abiy has faced international criticism for his handling of the Tigray conflict. But in the capital, businessman Tezros Bekele said the United Nations should take its hands off Ethiopia.
Nothing can stop Ethiopia. Our unity will continue. Ethiopia will not fall.
Meanwhile, Tigrayan forces have seized 3 districts in the neighbouring Afar region and sent more than 54,000 people fleeing from their homes. That's according to an Afar regional spokesman on Thursday, who said, quoting some of the displaced people, Tigrayan fighters had burned homes, looted and killed civilians. He provided no evidence and his claims could not be independently verified. Getachew Reda, spokesman for the Tigrayan forces, did not immediately return calls seeking comment on the accusations.
David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. Attacks by Tigrayan fighters in Ethiopia's Afar region have forced over 54,000 people from their homes, according to an official. Refugees living in a southern Tigray camp described heavy clashes nearby. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is facing heavy criticism for his handling of the Tigray conflict that threatens to undermine stability in Africa's second most populous nation. Africa is demanding that global pharmaceutical firms license production of COVID-19 vaccines in Africa rather than just do piecemeal contract deals. Africa Union coronavirus envoy Strive Masiyiwa made the call, speaking just one day after Pfizer and BioNTech announced a fill and finish deal with South Africa's Biovac Institute, under which it will carry out the final stages of vaccine manufacturing, where the product is processed and put into vials. Pfizer and BioNTech will handle drug substance production at their facilities in Europe. Médecins Sans Frontières calls the arrangement restrictive and says much more is needed to support vaccine independence in Africa. Africa, which is battling a third wave of infections, has administered just 60 million vaccine doses in a population of 1.3 billion due to restrictions on shipments from vaccine-producing nations like India. Former President Jacob Zuma, whose imprisonment this month led to South Africa's worst outbreak of violence in years, was granted compassionate leave Thursday to attend the funeral of his younger brother. The government says he was back in prison by the afternoon. Soldiers patrolled nearby and military and police vehicles were stationed along the road. Zuma has been incarcerated at Esther prison since handing himself over on July 7th to serve a 15-month sentence for contempt of court. The prison is in KwaZulu-Natal. Zuma was granted compassionate leave as he was considered a short-term, low-risk inmate, according to a statement by the Department of Correctional Services. Students in Malawi have begun classes in what is being billed as the world's first 3D printed school constructed by joint venture group 14 Trees. The Swiss-British group says the quick construction of computer-built schools can help alleviate a shortfall in classrooms in countries like Malawi. But as Lamek Masina reports from Salima District, Malawi, that cost remains a challenge.
Adif Maulana quit school in 2014 to escape punishment she often received for arriving late. She had to walk 7 kilometers to classes held under a tree because of Malawi's shortage of classrooms. But thanks to what is being called the world's first 3D printed school, Maulana has resumed learning.
I'm now happy because I will realize my dream to become a teacher because the school is near now. I will not arrive late at school and lessons are going smoothly.
Maulana is among tens of students benefiting from the school, which was constructed by a computer. 14 Trees is a joint venture by Swiss cement maker Lafarge Holcim and the United Kingdom's Development Finance Institution, the CDC Group. The project aims to quickly construct affordable housing and schools in African countries like Malawi, which has a shortfall of 36,000 classrooms, according to the UN Children's Fund.
Our estimate is that with conventional construction methods, it would take more than 70 years to build so many classrooms. And we think that 3D printing can be a solution to bring a lot of speed to that construction process and reduce that time needed to build those schools to 10 years or even less.
The technology allowed them to construct this school in about 18 hours. Building by hand would have taken about 3 weeks.
The other advantage is also that you reduce drastically the quantity of material that you need when you print. And this has an effect both on the affordability, meaning that those buildings become more affordable, but also on the CO2 footprint, which is reduced. And in Malawi, it's up to 70% less CO2 that is emitted per building.
But while 3D printing could transform construction across the world, the high cost is a challenge. While the school cost about 15% less to print than to build, the 3D printing machine costs about $500,000.
Now, the other thing that we also need to consider at this point will be, now, if this is a welcome development, who is going to own the 3D printing machine? Will it be the local contractor, or the government is going to buy it and then start printing all these classrooms all over the place? Maybe that's a discussion for another day.
But the project implementers say the costs will only go down as materials begin to be locally produced. Meanwhile, 14 Trees plans to continue demonstrating the power of the technology by printing more schools and houses in Malawi, as well as Kenya and Zimbabwe. Lamek Masina for VOA News, Salima District, Malawi.
From smartphones to billboards, digital displays are everywhere. But some companies say the ideal display is in the human eye itself, and they're developing some eye-opening smart contact lenses. VOA's Tina Trin reports.
We consult screens every day for information, but what if that experience could be delivered straight to your eyes? That's what some companies are hoping to accomplish with smart contact lenses. Lenses in which a user's field of vision is overlaid with digital information.
You can walk around with a heads-up display 24/7 in your eyes.
It may seem like a far-off concept, but engineers at startups are already developing smart lenses that marry augmented reality with everyday contact lenses. Michael Hayes is with Inwith Corporation, which created a prototype using a Bausch & Lomb lens.
We started from the safety and the efficacy of contact lenses as they are now. And then we worked out how to integrate circuitry into those kind of lenses.
Smart contact lens makers say their discreet appearance is a major draw.
There's no geek factor to it. When Google Glass came out a few years ago, people didn't want to adopt it because of the fact of the aesthetics.
While InWith works with soft contact lenses, another company uses a more rigid medical-grade lens. Steve Sinclair of Mojovision says the custom-fitted Mojo lens is all about invisible computing.
We should be able to get the information we want when we want it, but also stay engaged with the real world.
Mojovision claims to have made the world's smallest and densest micro-LED display.
We can pass data wirelessly to that display, and it projects it onto your retina.
Both InWith and Mojovision's lenses work in tandem with the user's smartphone to relay information to the lens. Mojo Lens has built-in motion and image sensors.
It's all about eye tracking and understanding your intent, and when you're not interested in that information, it just disappears.
It'll likely be years before consumers can test drive these lenses, but the technology is already proving they're more than meets the eye. Tina Trin, VOA News.
Carol Bastian draws artistic inspiration from the discarded items she collects on the streets of New York City. Nina Vishneva has more from the Manhattan-based artist in this report, narrated by Anna Rice.
She departs her home and walks toward New York City's Central Park. Artist Carol Bastian is on her daily stroll.
Oh, I see something in the street.
Bastian lives by the old saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. The Manhattan-based collage artist uses items from the street to create art. She puts them in a Ziploc bag and disinfects them at home.
And my collages are always site-specific. So I will record this as my walk on Madison from 12 East 87th Street to Park Avenue on 87th Street.
Over the years, she realized different parts of the city seemed to have its own specific kind of junk, and so her collages are now site-specific.
And I also noticed that depending upon the neighborhood, the debris often varied. One thing was always consistent wherever I was in New York. That was feathers and cigarette butts.
She calls it art underfoot, an idea born in the late 1960s when she started an art program in New York. When she spent much of her time in Florida during the COVID-19 lockdowns, she found no shortage of art material there either. The result, a series of still life collages.
These are all straws. And this actually was done in Florida. There's an 6-mile walk around the periphery of where I live.
Now she's working on her largest art project so far.
A black, probably takeout plate that got mashed by a car. A wrinkle remover, you know, lady's handbag that I'm using at the moment as an earring.
Her family members are used to her art. She says her work illustrates so much about how people live, consume, and throw away. For Nina Vishneva in New York, Anna Rice, VOA News.
Let us know what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. Our address is Africa54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, we'll tell you more about space tourism and the hunt for ancient life on Mars. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Members of a top Iraqi delegation in Washington say they expect to reach an agreement with the White House to end the U.S. combat mission in Iraq ahead of Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi's summit with President Joe Biden on Monday. VOA White House correspondent Stewart has our report.
A suicide bomb ripped through the Iraqi capital this week, killing at least 34 people. The attack, claimed by the Islamic State, is the kind of violence that Iraqi forces, trained and equipped by the United States, are trying to deter. U.S. support is expected to continue and will be a key focus in Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi's meeting with President Joe Biden at the White House Monday, said Press Secretary Jen Psaki, responding to VOA.
Their government is requesting continuing support from us and the coalition for training and enabling their forces, its forces, logistics, intelligence sharing, and other areas of security cooperation.
The U.S. withdrew troops at the end of the Iraq War in 2011. But after Islamic State's resurgence across Iraq and Syria in 2014, American forces returned. In April, U.S. and Iraq agreed to transition American troops' mission to focus on training and advisory, allowing for the redeployment of combat soldiers from Iraq. An agreement on ending the U.S. combat mission is expected to be finalized on Friday, said Iraqi Foreign Minister Fuad Hussein in an interview with VOA's Kurdish service.
But how will they not remain, and when do they exit, is related to a timeline agreed on by both sides, as well as technical matters and other issues related to the security of the forces.
While Baghdad is eager to show it can handle its own security, Iranian-backed militia groups have been targeting U.S. and Iraqi troops with drone and rocket attacks. The Iraqi government is also facing pressure from Iranian-linked political factions pushing for American troops to leave. But Baghdad needs U.S. military support to maintain stability.
So that points to more public statements saying that Iraq is ready and requiring U.S. military withdrawal or at least combat troops to disappear. On the U.S. side, it's actually pretty much the same. There's definitely a goal on behalf of the Biden administration to pivot away from the Middle East, to push it down in the list of priorities as well.
About 2,500 American soldiers remain in Iraq, and a shift in their role may not necessarily mean a reduction in numbers. But a formal announcement on ending their combat mission can be seen as a political win for Kadhimi ahead of the Iraqi parliamentary elections scheduled for October. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
Space tourism has another win after Amazon founder Jeff Bezos follows fellow billionaire Richard Branson in rocketing to weightlessness. Plus, the hunt for ancient life on Mars is about to begin, and wildfires rage out of control in the U.S. VOA's Arashar Basadi brings us the week in space.
Amazon founder Jeff Bezos this week joined another billionaire, Richard Branson, as the wealthiest people ever in space and notched another milestone in private space ventures. Bezos rode aboard his New Shepard rocket, named after first U.S. astronaut Alan Shepard, on the 52nd anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. On board the Blue Origin capsule were Bezos' brother Mark, 82-year-old aviation pioneer Wally Funk, and 18-year-old Oliver Diamond from the Netherlands. Funk and Diamond are respectively the oldest and youngest people ever launched from the planet. The crew floated through several minutes of weightlessness before landing in West Texas to a victorious champagne shower. Bezos said the flight is just the beginning for entrepreneurial activities in space.
We're going to build a road to space so that our kids and their kids can build the future. And we need to do that. We need to do that to solve the problems here on Earth.
Blue Origin has not revealed the passenger cost for future flights, but Bezos says the company so far sold nearly $100 million in tickets. A public auction for a seat on the first flight pulled in $28 million for charity, but that passenger had a scheduling conflict and needed to rebook. Competitor Virgin Galactic is charging $200,000 to $500,000 for seats on its future flights, the first of which didn't go quite as high as Blue Origin. Whether or not either mission actually achieved spaceflight is a matter of interpretation, according to the senior curator at Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, Mike Neufeld, who spoke with the Associated Press.
There's always been an argument about where does the atmosphere stop and where does space begin, because there is no neat line. There is no barrier that you break through. The atmosphere simply fades out, and, it has different layers. So at some point it becomes thinner and thinner and thinner, and you come very close to a vacuum.
Neufeld says debate over where space begins has raged since the start of America's space program. In otherworldly news, NASA says it's almost time for the Mars rover Perseverance to get to work on a critical mission. Perseverance will travel to the Jezero crater in early August to begin taking soil samples from what scientists believe is a dry lake bed that could hold evidence of ancient life. Scientists say any signs of life found will likely be microbial. Finally, this week, NASA recently released images of the Bootleg Fire in Oregon. The nation's largest wildfire is now more than 1,600 square kilometers in size. Its smoke this week traveled more than 4,000 kilometers to create hazy conditions on the East Coast. Extreme drought and high temperatures, both courtesy of climate change, are expected to make a busy fire season worse. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
This year's 1455 Summer Literary Festival, an annual free 3-day virtual program sponsored by a group of universities in Virginia, featured over 200 authors, poets, and creative artists sharing their insights into the art of storytelling. We get more from VOA's Maxim Muskalkov.
The annual 3-day-long 1455 Summer Literary Festival was held virtually in mid-July this year because of the lingering effects of COVID. Still, the festival hosted over 70 talks between authors and readers. The virtual format helped attract a more international crowd to the sessions on storytelling, says festival director Sean Murphy.
We want to interrogate and look at storytelling as an art form across virtually any platform. So, of course, that will include literary fiction and poetry and writing and journalism. But we're also looking at sports reporting. We're looking at political reporting. We're looking at dance, and we're looking at performing arts. Really, we're trying to take a look at what does storytelling mean?
The festival's headliner this year was Douglas Stewart, a Scottish-American writer and fashion designer. His debut novel, Shaggy Bane, was awarded the 2020 Booker Prize. Stewart wrote his coming-of-age story set in 1980s Scotland while living in New York and working in the fashion industry. He says his manuscript was rejected by publishers over 40 times.
But I was so excited when Shuggy was going to join the world in February 2020. I'd been waiting for that moment for so long. And so you can probably imagine my disappointment when my book arrives in a bookstore at the end of February, and then the week later, the world closes down because of the pandemic.
Philippe Cousteau, American oceanographer and environmental activist, presented his series of children's books about endangered animal species.
My grandfather, Jacques Cousteau, was a world-renowned environmental advocate and ocean explorer and storyteller. My father, Philippe Sr., as well. And so I come from a generations-long legacy of storytellers, recognizing that story is essentially the language of learning.
The festival concluded with a number of awards. Award-winning author, journalist, and CNN TV host Lisa Ling received the Storyteller of the Year award. She says it's easy to see the world in new ways.
All you have to do is leave your little bubble. and frankly, you don't even have to leave your bubble very often if you just engage with the people who are around you.
Young poets also received well-deserved awards. From the 160 applications, 10 were selected as winners. Maxim Muskalkov for VOA News, Washington.
Burkinabe triple jumper Hug Fabrice Zango in January set a world record to hop, skip and jump more than 18 meters indoors. Zango is participating in the Tokyo Olympics and stands a good chance of bringing home Burkina Faso's first Olympic medal. Henry Wilkins reports from Ouagadougou.
No Burkinabe has ever won a medal at the Olympic Games. Young athletes like Khaled Sawadogo, though, seen here practicing the triple jump, are taking inspiration from a former member of their athletics club who looks set to do just that.
You know, when you start athletics in Burkina Faso, you have the impression that you are at the bottom of the ladder. But he proved by breaking the world record, jumping more than 18 meters, we can do it as well.
28-year-old Hugues Fabrice Zango, shown in these pictures leaping into the record books in January, became the first person ever to jump more than 18 meters in an indoor triple jump. Optimism for his performance in Tokyo is running high.
The pressure is mounting because there are a lot of expectations at these Olympic Games. We are arriving with a lot of ambitions to bring back Burkina Faso's medal. That's a positive thing. It proves that we can accomplish great things.
Burkina Faso is one of the least developed countries in the world. It's also in the middle of a conflict that has ravaged parts of the country, displacing more than 1.2 million people. Zango said on Twitter earlier this month that winning the country's first medal could help bring hope for the country's future. Zango's parents, meanwhile, say the secret to producing an Olympic medal contender is spotting talent early and nurturing it.
We knew from his early school years he was someone who was curious, who likes to learn, and who likes to push himself as far as possible.
As far as food went, he always told me that to be a good athlete, there are things he couldn't eat. I did what I could and helped him change his diet.
Zango is also pursuing a PhD in electrical engineering at Artois University in France and fits his athletics career around his studies. His high school coach says his former student breaking the world record is already benefiting Burkinabe athletics, regardless of what happens in Tokyo.
A lot of Burkinabe sportsmen can look up to Zango, but also many parents want their children to do athletics now. This is a really positive thing for us.
Sawadogo, for one, says Zango has inspired him to aim for the Olympics.
Yes, it is the dream of every athlete to go to the Olympics. I am aiming for 2024. I am making it my personal goal.
As Burkina Faso waits with bated breath to see if Zango brings home a medal, the triple jump final is scheduled for August 5th. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso.
That's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.